Our next guest needs no introduction unless you just landed on the planet, because he, of course, is Wynton Marsalis. He's in Tulsa, and he joins us now to discuss a project that he is involved in to commemorate just what happened 100 years ago. And Wynton, thanks for being with us, by the way. And when did you first hear about what happened to Black Wall Street?
Maybe about 30 years ago, quite some time ago, from one of my mentors, Albert Murray. And also Ralph Ellison was also a mentor of mine, and he's from Oklahoma. So they told me about it.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with the project you're working on. You've joined forces with the Tulsa Symphony and Festival Chorus to present what is called All Rise. Describe what it is and what we're going to be looking for.
Well, it's a big piece, maybe 140 or 150 people on the stage, actually more 160 something people on the stage. And it's a celebration of the cycle of life, and it recognizes tragedies that happen, and it takes us through the steps of what we need to do to attain a kind of oneness with other people. That's why we call it All Rise. It was first premiered for the New York Philharmonic and the Morgan State Choir, right after September 11th. We recorded it, and it's a kind of epic piece with big forces that celebrates our humanity but recognizes what goes on out here.
Wynton, Black Wall Street is America in a microcosm when it comes to racism. There are an awful lot of black people that believe we got stuck in slavery. And there's that narrative that there was slavery, and then there was you, then there was me, and nothing in between. But Black Wall Street said if you give them land, if you give them an opportunity, they will build a society that will make your head swim. And yet each and every time we get there, they pull it back. How do we get to the point where they don't pull it back again?
Well, you know, I think that we have to mind our narrative, and I think that this was a whole system of riots and things that took place. Memphis started it in the 1880s. And some of the people who left Memphis, Ida B. Wells was a great anti-lynching activist, said, you need to leave here to get to a certain level of equality. And they ended up here. They were a part of what took place in 1921. This is during the pandemic. It's after World War I. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances. But we have to be careful to not constantly set up a us-them dynamic, and to set up us always in the victim position. It's important to know our history. It's important for us to understand there's been tremendous opposition to Afro-Americans in our country, but it's also important to understand that there have been great victories. And when you define yourself only in terms of your defeats, and you cast away all of your victories, you put yourself in a constant victimhood position. So I think it's important to recognize the depth of the tragedies that have taken place in our country to keep the Black American down. But it's important also for us at that same time to recognize the triumph of where we came from slavery. Many times there's not an understanding of the depth of depravity that was achieved in slavery, not just for Black Americans, but for everybody who participated in this system, which with the fugitive slave law and slaves as stock would be the entire nation. And it's something that we still have not recuperated from. But it's important for us to not take the victim narrative and run with it all the time, but to take the hero narrative and say, in spite of all these things, we went in this direction, and here's another thing that happened, and here's another thing that happened, and this is what we're going to do, so that we're always not only holding those who exploited us and continue to exploit us accountable, we also are holding ourselves accountable to our ancestors and the things that they did to survive unbelievably difficult circumstances.
Wynton, we have both worked across the aisle, so to speak, in terms of white America. How do we get the other white America to help us to tell those people that don't understand our history, our narrative, and things like Black Wall Street, and how that thread permeates society all the way up to George Floyd, for instance, in order to build a better nation, as Biden would say, in order to make America better than it was, warts and all?
You know, I think we have to tell our best narrative and take ourselves seriously and be for real about our freedoms and exercise them. And we also have to understand that most of the white people are being exploited too. So if I'm coming to you like you're not being exploited, and I'm asking you to help me, man, you need me to help you. So it's not, it's a lot of times these equations are very nuanced and sophisticated, and they don't fit into a soundbite form. And there's so much trash in our system with pornography and gambling and all the stuff that we're doing now that is becoming our national identity. We've lost a grip on our younger people and the ability to lead them into a responsible adulthood. It's hard for me to say in big ways, how can we say this or that to some white people who are also under siege, who are also being victimized, who are also, man, they're in bad shape too. So the question is, how can we come together and how can we capitalize on the things that we have done at our best when we're together without trying to pretend like the tragedy of what goes on right now in the judicial system, all the miscarriages of justice that go on people. We can, not to close our eyes to it, because when you become so polarized, if you're not a part of a tribal narrative, man, you seem, it's very hard to find a common ground to speak to people from, because everybody has their side. And if you're not on their side, it's like being in a gang. If you got to be a part of a gang, anything that seems like you're against that gang, man, you might have to be executed. So, you know, we're in a very difficult place, but I think we have to communicate, and we also have to be mutually productive. It's easy to talk. You know, it's like threatening somebody. It's easy to do those types of things. What are we working on together? And that's what we're doing with All Rise. You're going to see us work together. This piece of music is difficult to play. We're going to come together. There's going to be black and white folks up there of all ages, generations, and persuasions with a message of universal humanity, and not with closed eyes, acting like tragic things have not happened in our country, have not happened around the world. The man who asked me to write it actually was a soldier in the Nazi army. And he said, man, let me tell you something about civilization. It's on a thin ledge, and it's easy. What you don't understand about Nazi Germany is that people were cheering for what happened. And we knew. Don't ever think we did not know what was going on. We knew, and we did it anyway. So it's important for us to always connect with one another in a productive way.